So the concept of the holodeck in a Star Trek kind of a format or fashion has always interested me. I grew up watching Star Trek as a kid. I wasn't like heavy into it, but and I only got a chance to watch some of like the Shatner Spock, original Spock kind of Star Trek. But I did watch a couple of seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation with Jean-Luc Picard, and I still do that when I have time. The technologies kind of showcased in Star Trek are super interesting. Um, like from like the holodeck to obviously the starships themselves, to antimatter drives, and I think all these technologies are needed and will be needed as we continue progressing in the future. So, coming back to the holodeck, this is display systems, realities, virtual worlds, multiple layers of reality, human computer interaction, um, being able to create new surroundings, interactive surroundings, and obviously having more art and expression and newer ways to experience uh, everything, not just content. Like, I think we're going towards a experience economy in a Brian Solis sense. It's always been my sense. That's why I call my company Experience Labs when I started it about a year and a half ago. But all these kind of trends are converging towards some realities. It's not, in this case, it's not a one point. A it's a very diverse set of activities. So there's activities happening in a virtual world, in augmented reality. Computation systems are being pushed. Display systems are, we're seeing newer forms of display system from quantum dots, and the next evolution, holograms are coming in 6 years or 6 to 7 years or less. And many other kind of innovations are happening in order to be able to power new experiences. And the key word is experience. And in that respect, today I want to just kind of talk about the holodeck in a Star Trek kind of a fashion. So for those who don't know what a holodeck is or haven't seen Star Trek, you have to watch Star Trek or a couple episodes or just kind of look up holodeck on YouTube. Just kind of find out. You just kind of plug HOLODECK Star Trek in YouTube and kind of go through some of those videos. But basically, you step into a room and the surroundings change based on what you've programmed into the construct or the system or the computer before you enter into the room. And you can kind of change things on the fly. So there's a lot of advanced stuff happening within the context of how the holodeck is supposed to be functioning. So there's like natural language processing happening. There's like rendering, like you wouldn't imagine, or it's the way it's showcased is that it's as close to real life as possible. So a human is not able to tell the difference between a simulated reality and a potentially a simulated kind of setting or something that would be real. So, like, there's a couple of episodes where Riker was one of the Star Trek character, Jonathan Frakes. He walks into the holodeck and he's having this conversation with a lady, and he's like almost like falling in love with her because she's so pretty, and he is not able to tell the difference. And he's like, and he actually makes that comment, I think, in that episode, that is like they were sitting in the bar and he goes that, wow, this holodeck simulation is getting like super real and interesting, and he's just kind of smitten by that lady, and Picard kind of comes in and joins them afterwards. So it's like it's really fascinating. But so from a functional sense, like how will such a reality be powered? And I try to wrap my mind around those kind of problems when I have some time. So from an actual functional point of view, I don't know how far away something like this would be. Depends on the level of detail you'd want to build a technology like this. So we're talking about a couple of senses. First and foremost is sight, auditory, smell, natural language processing, um, the ability for the computer to be able to talk back in a more natural kind of a setting, because like there's a lot of jarring or it's not smooth. It doesn't matter what kind of technology it's getting smoother. Like if you use the first version of Siri and you use it now, it's way better. I would say it's on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a Simone in a Hollywood kind of a sense. Um, I would put this as if it started at 0, I put this as a 1.5 or a 2, or less actually. But anyway, so coming back to the holodeck, so there's a couple of problems to be solved. One, obviously, first and foremost, other than the problem I mentioned, is the problem of just like the sheer amount of computation that will be required in order to be able to power such a reality or realities. And there's a bunch of ways you can kind of look at that. But my sense is that's not going to be a problem in the future. I strongly suspect there's going to be breakthroughs in computing, in the way computing is done, in order to be able to provide more computing to more people all around the world. So an outward manifestation of such a reality will be a design by which we can power amazing experiences, such as amazing virtual worlds, many different realities within the virtual augmented world, and as well something like the holodeck. So one is that problem again of computation. The other problem is of dynamically adjusting surroundings, because when you are in a holodeck, the holodeck is whatever you want it to be. And so for a construct, a physical space with physical limitations such as the dimensions, for it to be able to conjure realities that are only limited to your imagination, it has to adjust itself dynamically on the fly. So you could be in the middle of the Sahara, you could be in an amazing scenic place in China or Vietnam, you could be in Alaska, you could be sitting in your living room itself while not sitting there. Or again, you could be, going back to that Star Trek example, you could be in a bar having a conversation with a beautiful woman, and being completely in that moment. So there's the whole, again, it's only limited to your imagination. That's only in the real world. You could visit like alien kind of exoplanets. You could we could send probes under the surface of Europa, model that reality, and recreate it for others to be able to see it and experience it in a holodeck kind of an environment. And I can sit here and really come up with some, try to come up with some really cool examples of what the holodeck could power. But so the first problem was computation. The next problem is one of dynamically adjusting environments. So I thought about this, not too much. Actually, I'm thinking about it right now as I speak. I haven't sat down and thought about this for a couple hours or days on end. So let's see the use case. So I step into the holodeck and I've programmed it to say I'm on a lunar colony, living on a lunar colony for a project for 6 months, and I'd like the holodeck to project a scenic, like a place back in Ontario, like the place I lived in during the spring or the summer, some like a lake up on the up north or somewhere. So when the holodeck kind of renders that reality, the program is simulated so that I can walk up to a bench or like a Muskoka chair or something, and I can just sit down and enjoy the view, enjoy the lake. So it's a pretty kind of a simple computer simulation, but the things that have to be thought through is, in this use case at least, are the terrain, the interaction with that terrain, and how that would work is, so I would just kind of, the moment I step into the holodeck, it would change to that construct, to that reality, the projected reality. And as I walk up to that chair, my steps will be kind of tracked using an advanced physics engine. And as soon as I put my step on the grass, the grass blades kind of change and crumple based on exactly how they would if somebody actually stepped on that grass in the real world. So there's a whole bunch of things you can render and model. Is there mud on the side? If you step on the mud, it leaves an imprint, and stuff like that. This just kind of make it as realistic as possible. And I think those kind of things could only be rendered if constructs were created pixel by pixel. So again, this is why I started the problem of computation, because to render something like this, you need advanced computation. And I know of a technology in development that's going to be able to allow us to do just that. This has to do with something with neural nets, which is fascinating. So I've taken the steps, and then I walk up to the chair, and I sit on the chair, and I'm now sitting on the chair. Now, this is not like any solution out there where, so this is just one of the use cases. What if I have to climb a mountain in Alaska? Or what if I am, what's another example? I'm not going to get into the super advanced stuff like riding a horse or swimming or anything like that. But, interactions that we can do by dynamically adjusting the environment itself is the problem I'm getting to now. So the computation systems, transversing that towards creating realities that mimic the real world, like really the two sides of the same coin. And the second or the third problem, depending on how you want to look at it, is the construct changing the dynamic nature itself. And this is going to be possible with some kind of an advanced material which will change its shape and structure based on whatever parameters have been programmed into the construct. Now, I'm not looking at something like nanotechnology or functional nanotechnology that's out 25 years out, or micrometer machines that could be modeled on the fly. That's too much work. So that kind of stuff works in the world of electrons or moving pixels. But I don't think that's the reality. I don't think I'd want to be challenged, see how something like that could be pushed with maybe advanced biological materials. It's going to be, that's the first image that comes to your mind is like something goopy. Or something else at that. So I'm not looking at those kind of stuff. But I think this is more of a problem of material science, and material sciences are advancing very rapidly. And if there's some mechanism by which the environment could be modeled on a real-time basis, then that would be really cool. So going back to that example, if I walk up to a certain point, so the floor can move as well. You have to realize that, right? So if I am in a room with a fixed set of dimensions, then my experience doesn't have to be limited just to those fixed uh, environment. It could be a very rich environment. It could be an entire world. But considering relativity in respect to my position and what I'm perceiving, it doesn't have to be limited because, well, the floor can move. You can have a dynamically adjusting floor. So, I'm going back to that example. When I walk up to a certain point, I see that chair there. In the actual construct, that chair was not there when I first entered the room. But how do you introduce that chair now so I can sit on that chair and enjoy the view of that beautiful shimmering lake up in the north with sunshine falling upon it? And like if you've actually seen some of the lakes in Ontario, the view is amazing in the summer. It's from the heavens. So going back to the example, the chair would be modeled with some kind of a material that will like dynamically evolve from the floor or somewhere in order to create just that thing. So it's not like 3D printing, and it's not any one of those technologies like nanotechnology or micrometer machines or anything like that I mentioned. This would just be the floor, if you want to call it, kind of something emerging from the floor in order to be able to power that kind of a reality. But the question then becomes, if that does happen, then that distorts your line of sight in some respect, because if everything is powered in a way that what you see is just a massive representation of a lot of pixels firing together, and you change something within that dynamic structure, then it distorts the image in some respect. So how do you get around that problem, right? Do you actually model the entire construct of the HoloDeck from some advanced material that is able to project some reality on a pixel by pixel level, irrespective of how the structure of that the holodeck itself is changed? So there's like a lot of obviously complex problems to be solved when it comes to steps to the holodeck, but I think it's very possible, quite likely, that within 8, maximum 10 years, a construct like the holodeck will emerge, and when it does emerge, it will again change everything. It will change education, healthcare, business. Will change defense, having to train soldiers, law enforcement personnel. It will change every facet of the human civilization, because now that need to provision physical spaces in order to be able to get the ball rolling on anything is gone. So the price to actually get the traction on anything you want has been eliminated, for lack of a better word, using this technology. So you can be whatever you want. You can be anyone. You can be. You can choose to learn about anything you want, and you can actually be anyone you want as well in a holodeck kind of a reality. That's a really exciting world, because that's the real promise of technology. Civilization or species have gotten to the level where we are today because of the usage of our tools and the spaces we make. The combination of the two has had a profound impact on our evolution. In this case, from the perspective of just imagine, I was just in the shower thinking about this. I was using shower gel, obviously, and it smells nice. And then I shaved. And I thought, a couple of million years ago, the poor caveman would be devoid of such luxuries of like a shower with the shower gel, or I'm assuming they weren't shaving back then. So the tool used did lead us towards a kinder, gentler version of ourselves. Um, and it was just a thought that hit me when I was in the shower. Um, Capture shower time. Anyways, so yeah, holodeck. I'm all for something like the holodeck. I want to go towards a reality where we create systems like this. That's just one of my dreams. That something like the holodeck is powered. And my vision of the future, going from the digital arts and experience, tapping into the experience economy. Because again, going back to my comment that I made earlier, we are going definitely past the content, monetizing the X out of content space towards more of a delivering experience economy. So some businesses they understand it really well, like Starbucks, and many other businesses. Facebook understands this too, in some respects. But and Apple, obviously, the king when it comes to delivering the experience, thanks to the wonderful work by Steve Jobs. So as we make that transition towards the experience economy, we should think of how technologies can either be leveraged or pushed in order to be able to power newer experiences. The goal is still the same. I don't know if it's implicit or not, or explicit or not. But technology and its use is leveraged in order to be able to improve the human condition for all. And something like the holodeck, in my mind, would be a super awesome, liberating experience when it comes to that. So I'll end at that note. If you are also interested in exploring the usage of technology, and I don't know why I have this delay in my speech, but I just like get really excited about technologies, thinking about like the possibilities that something like the holodeck could be used. But yeah, if you're also interested in a space like this, then I would love to hear from you. If you watched this video, the entire 23 minutes of it, then thanks a lot. And I'll see you guys at another time.